Happy New Year, friends. I'm Sean, the Modern Yeoman, and I've got a hypothetical question for you today. What would you do if you suddenly found yourself in possession of 10 acres of land, a nice mixture of pasture and woods, but you had no idea what you were going to do with it and very little experience working outdoors, either with plants or animals? Would you set to work right away, get busy cranking out chicken coops and raised beds, maybe try your hand at a few amateur drainage projects? Or would you stop and wait and observe for a little while, listen to the land, let it show you its quirks, where it tends to flood and where it tends to stay dry, where the deer like to gather and where the trees like to fall? Well, that's the position that Holly and I find ourselves in. It's crazy to think that only a year ago we were both sitting in an apartment in the city. I was working a corporate job at the time, and although we had a dream of one day moving out to the country and trying our hand at this homesteading thing, we had no notion of an idea that by the end of the year, we'd both be self-employed and sitting on 10 acres of our own land. We'd have a barn, that we'd have chickens. And while the story of how we got from there to here is something I'll save for another time, that still leaves us with the question, what do we do now? Do we get super busy with projects? Or do we stop and wait and observe the land for a little while? Or maybe just a little bit of both. Say what you will about 2020. 2020 brought us here to the farm. But now that it's over, I thought it would be beneficial to both me and to you following along to see what kind of intentions and projects we have lined up for the next 12 months. It's going to be a big year, and although there's a lot to do and we may not get to all of it, it's good to at least know where we stand. Already I can see one major project waiting for us. You see all this wood behind me? We need to mulch it. There's one in the bank. The very first question that people often ask us when we tell them that we're homesteaders is what kind of animals we have here on our little farm. Well, I'm proud to say that within our first 3 months here, we've been able to raise a flock of 11 laying hens and one surprise rooster with hardly any issues or problems at all. Now, that being said, we do have a vision of one day hosting a menagerie of different animals here. Think Dr. Doolittle or Cog Hill Farm, but we would like to start slow. So for 2021, I think our next step is to run a batch or maybe two of meat chickens. We're thinking either Cornish Cross or Freedom Rangers. If we're able to get pigs by the end of the year, I'd be very happy about that. But suffice it to say, I'm going to set myself a goal of doing meat chickens by the end of the year. The next goal is one I'm very excited about, and one that we're going to get started working on here very soon, probably next week. And that's building raised beds for our garden. As you may remember, we've saved a lot of salvage wood from our barn that we intend to start building these raised beds with. Now, it's my goal that by the end of the year, we can claim 75 to 90% of our produce comes from stuff we've grown here on our own land. The next project is something that I'm not very excited about, but also something that I can't really avoid, and that's taking care of some of our drainage issues, especially in areas that we want to place those aforementioned raised beds. I've already put one French drain into the ground already. Looks like I'll probably have to put quite a few more in place. A lot of folks have asked how my parents are doing now that they've been living in this little cabin on the property for a few weeks now. Well, they've been very busy making it livable, and in 2021, they're going to make the decision on whether they want to build something new or keep this place. Whatever they decide, we're going to help them do it. So, Dad, are you going to keep the house in 2021, or are you going to get a new house built?
Right now, we don't know. Honestly, the plan seems to go back and forth. What we're trying to do is get some more information on how much it would cost for different repairs and that sort of thing. There's plumbing issues, potentially plumbing issues, and some other things that we'd have to take a look at and see whether or not it kind of the cost benefit of keeping the place. So we shall see. If it turns out that it's just going to be too much money to put into this old place, then we'll probably go with a new home.
Speaking of drainage issues, I do want to build some more rain barrels. I've only got 4 right now, and honestly, I'm not sure how much water they help drain away, but regardless, they're really cheap to build, and it is free water. Next, who can forget the barn? As you might know, I spent a good deal of time cleaning this place up. And while there's definitely a lot of issues to fix, things like open roof panels or shaky columns, my goal for 2021 is to make it a very functional space. Take this lean-to, for instance. It wouldn't be hard for me to add some paneling around the edges of it and make it a functional animal pen. Speaking of cleaning things up, there's still a lot of that to do. Construction debris still dots the property, not to mention that nasty old broken down office trailer back in the woods. My days of renting dumpsters are far from over. Walking through our woods, we come across our dry stream, which I've dubbed Higgins Creek. Now, as you can see, Higgins Creek certainly isn't dry right now. During the summer months, there's no water on the ground here, but the rest of the year, this is a fairly robust little stream. Now, the problem with Higgins Creek is that it separates the southern portion of our property, where our houses and our barn and our front pastures are, from the north part of our property, where we've got 5 or 6 acres of really nice back pasture. Now, eventually I am going to want to keep animals on that back pasture. I'm thinking pigs and eventually sheep, but we will need to get across. So what I need to do in 2021 is keep an eye on Higgins Creek to see how wide it will get and find a good place to put some kind of bridge, something that'll support us walking across it and small utility vehicles driving across it. So as it turns out, one of my biggest goals for 2021 is doing nothing, is sitting here and watching the land, waiting, observing. I have to admit, it makes me profoundly uncomfortable to just sit around and wait for things, but for the good of my homestead, that's what I need to do, at least in some areas. Take this random cove in my back pasture, for instance. I'd say it's only about half an acre big, and it's just sitting here. I don't like the fact that it's just sitting here doing nothing, but if I want it to realize its full potential in the future, I'd be well served to wait 12 months and see how the 4 seasons treat it. So there you have it, our big goals for the homestead this year. Meat chickens, raised beds, various infrastructure projects, a lot to take on. And while plans will change and other things will pop up, I'm relatively confident that we can handle these big ones. Also, I genuinely hope that this will be a positive and thoroughly productive year for you as well. Whether you live on a homestead as well, or you're in an apartment, whether you're out in the country or you're in the suburbs, maybe 2021 will surprise you. Anyways, until next time, let's get busy.